Welcome into another edition of Just the Truth. Glad to have you join me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Former President Donald Trump began the second day of the hush money trial in New York City, complaining about its conflicted judge, whom the 45th president called a Trump-hating judge. We have all the updates for you on day two. Also, a potential juror in the former president's trial spoke to the media shortly after she was excused from the pool, highlighting the serious mood inside the courtroom and admitting that she's not a fan of the president, but defended his right to a fair trial. New standards for LED light bulbs announced by the Biden administration will likely mean measurable savings for American households, they say. Experts say, though, that the bulbs last so long that it may be years before consumers notice the benefits. Just another instance of the federal government mandating what you and I can purchase. During oral arguments yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court appeared to be somewhat skeptical about the charges leveled against hundreds of January 6 protesters. That could get quite interesting if new trials and some of these charges have to be looked at again, which, let me remind you, could involve President Donald Trump as well. And if you're wealthy and live in Los Angeles, Mayor Karen Bass is trying to shame you into buying a house for the less fortunate, simply because you've worked hard and succeeded. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your text messages to the Foreman Ford text line. Voice messages are welcome, as are your emails, joey@joeyhudson.com.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills, but I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Former President Donald Trump began day two of his trial in New York City, complaining about the case, as he has often done, talking about the, quote, conflicted judge. The 45th president called the judge a Trump-hating judge. Let me warn you, it's a little bit noisy in this room. It's actually just outside of the courtroom. Here's President Trump.
I just want to thank you very much, and we are going to continue our fight against this judge. We think he's totally conflicted. He's a conflicted judge. As you know, we're in appeal. I don't think there has ever been a judge more conflicted than this one, so we'll see how that all works out. We're having a hard time. We're having a hard time with the New York State system. It's under watch by the whole world, and it's not looking very good. So we think we have a very conflicted, highly conflicted judge. He shouldn't be on the case, and he's rushing this trial, and he's doing as much as he can for the Democrats. This is a Biden-inspired witch hunt, and it should end very quickly. Thank you very much, everyone.
Are you glad you have an attorney?
Trump arrived at the court in Lower Manhattan for day two of a trial that's anticipated to least potentially 6 weeks or so as he battles 34 charges of falsifying business records. Jury selection will continue until they are able to narrow it down to 12. 96 potential jurors filed into the courtroom on Monday, where they were asked questions about whether they could be impartial jurors. More than 50 were immediately dismissed. The court is anticipating that they will vet a pool of roughly 500 jurors in order to get 12 New Yorkers and a handful of alternates from the group. The trial's origin stretched back to 2016 during that election cycle, when former Trump attorney Michael Cohen paid former pornographic actor Stormy Daniels $130,000 to allegedly silence her claims she had an extramarital affair with Trump back in 2006. Trump, of course, has denied having an affair with Daniels and also pleaded not guilty to the charges. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg brought forth the indictment last year. Prosecutors say that the Trump organization reimbursed Cohen for the payment to Daniels and falsely recorded the payments as legal expenses. Prosecutors are working to prove that Trump falsified the records with an intent to commit or conceal a second crime, which is a felony. Trump explained to reporters as he was entering the courtroom today what he did and what those expenses were for.
I was paying a lawyer and marked it down as a legal expense. Some accountant, I didn't know, marked it down as a legal expense. That's exactly what it was. And you get indicted over that? This is a sham trial, and the judge should recuse himself because he's totally conflicted. Thank you very much.
The Republicans and independents will say they won't vote for you if you're convicted.
Trump, for months now, has complained against the presiding judge, Merchan, including on Truth Social, where he has described him as suffering from an acute case of Trump derangement syndrome. Trump's legal team has also demanded Merchan's recusal from the case, citing that Merchan's daughter works as a Democrat consultant. The judge denied that motion on Monday. Merchan said, "There is no agenda here. We want to follow the law. We want justice to be done." Trump's legal team has also called on Merchan last year to recuse himself, pointing to his daughter's work, again, in a number of different Democrat causes in the 2020 election. The judge has always denied that there was any conflict of interest, though. Again, this could be 6 weeks or so, and it's going to take up a lot of time that Donald Trump will not be able to be out on the campaign trail, not be able to fundraise. And as we told you yesterday, potentially won't even be able to attend his son Barron's high school graduation. A potential juror in the trial spoke to the media as she was excused from the pool, highlighting the serious mood inside the courtroom. Kara McGee was her name. She told the group of media that the court that she could serve as a juror and that she felt she could be unbiased, while noting in her comment that it was very difficult for anyone really in this country to not come to the court without prior opinions. McGee said 2 of the questions asked of potential jurors most clearly indicated how they felt about Trump and the case. One, she said, is, do you have opinions about the ability of a former sitting president to be tried in a court of law? Which I think the way people answered that showed how they felt about the case, she said. She said the other question was, do you have any opinions about legal limits for campaign finance donation amounts? Which she said she believed was another one that was kind of meant to gauge feelings about the particular case. McGee said that she did not make eye contact with Trump as she was being questioned. She admitted she's not a fan of Donald Trump, but says she believes he has the right to a fair trial.
It's very difficult for anyone really in this country to not come to this with prior opinions. I think we all have prior opinions about the defendant, unless you've been like living in a cardboard box since 2014. But personally, the right to a fair trial in this country is more important to me than anything this particular defendant has done or any feelings about him that I personally have. And then I think in order to uphold that, I was willing to put everything aside as much as I could. It felt, jury-wise, like from the other jurors, that everyone was really taking it upon themselves to step in and do their civic duty here. I think, regardless of what people came into it thinking about the defendant, there were other people as well in the jury box who answered the questions honestly and said, like, yes, I have family members who have been involved with X political thing. I have X opinion about something on this jury sheet, but I believe that I can put that aside and be unbiased. I'm not a fan. During COVID-19, I lived with someone who was immunocompromised, and I think his handling of COVID-19 was abysmal. Mass, we do not trust each other, is the right to a fair trial. And no matter what you think of someone as a person or what other things they may have done, what he is on trial for is a very specific thing. That even he deserves the right to a fair trial. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5630.
5639. Let me ask you, after hearing this young lady, do you think it is possible? She claimed, yes, I can give him a fair trial. I could. She was recused because she said her job would not allow her to take that much time off. I didn't realize that was an excuse that you could use to get out of serving as a juror. But do you really think that someone like her who admits she's not a fan, admits she, on a number of different issues, she disagrees with him. The one that stuck out with me was when she talked about the right that women have for reproductive rights. That one issue alone probably would somewhat make her biased towards Donald Trump, being the president who appointed 3 U.S. Supreme Court justices that overturned Roe v. Wade. But I don't know. Do you believe someone like her could potentially be unbiased? That they could look at the evidence presented and offer an opinion, offer a verdict based on the evidence alone, and that they're not their true feelings of the man sitting in front of him? Love to get your comments on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-5639. During oral arguments yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court appeared to be somewhat skeptical about the charges leveled against hundreds of January 6 protesters. Finally, there may be some common sense used against some of these people who have been charged. We'll talk about that. I told you yesterday that the court will be hearing oral arguments today. It's quite interesting, some of the comments that some of the justices brought up. First, let me tell you about PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, because you need to go ahead and make the phone call today if you need to lose a few extra pounds before we get into summer. 864-252-4925. Call, make your first consultation with PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. They have offices in Greenville, Asheville, Charlotte, Lake Norman. And if you're listening somewhere outside of the Carolinas and Georgia, you can still do the program virtually as well. We've had listeners from all around the country join Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition and lose weight and get healthy. You can too. If you're listening today and you're still on the fence, let me just tell you, this works. Trust me on this one. I lost 30 pounds in a short amount of time, and soon will be coming up on 4 years I've been able to maintain that weight. And that's the beauty of PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. Dr. Ashley Lucas, the founder of PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, she based the program on the science of nutrition, what to eat, when to eat, and how to eat. And it's just that simple. 864-252-4925. Call today, set up your consultation, and I promise you, in 10, you can be talking in just a few weeks about losing 10, 20, 30 pounds or more. We've had listeners who've lost 135 pounds. It's changed their life. It'll change yours too. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. The Supreme Court sounded a bit skeptical yesterday about a key obstruction charge leveled against hundreds of Capitol protesters, according to The Hill and other media sources. A decision along those lines could force prosecutors to reopen their cases and has the potential to undermine the federal case against former President Donald Trump regarding his efforts to overturn the 2020 election, per the New York Times. A decision on the case is expected probably late June. One of the convicted rioters, former police officer Joseph Fisher, started this when he challenged his charge of obstruction of an official proceeding. The 22-year-old statute, called the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, was created in the wake of the Enron banking scandal, and Fisher's lawyers say it was narrowly written to prevent evidence tampering in a lot of cases. In their view, prosecutors went too far in applying the charge to the day's events on January the 6th at the Capitol. Clarence Thomas and other conservative justices suggested prosecutors were guilty of what the Times calls selective prosecution. For example, Thomas asked, there have been many violent protests that have been interfered with proceedings. Has the government applied this provision to other protests? Neil Gorsuch, the justice, wondered if the charge would be applied to someone who stood up and heckled the court, maybe. In answering those questions, Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar sought to counter Thomas's point about the law. She said, we have to enforce it in a variety of prosecutions that don't focus on evidence tampering. She said, now, I can't give you an example of enforcing it in a situation where people have violently stormed a building in order to prevent an official proceeding, a specified one, from occurring. Yes, you can't find an example because they haven't done one. They used this Sarbanes-Oxley, which was again originally set up to prevent corporate issues, and these prosecutors got real creative and have been using it to charge people who got caught up in a protest on January the 6th. Now, on the liberal side of the Supreme Court justice, which they have 3 votes. It's a 6-3 minority. They were more open to a broader interpretation of the law. Sonia Sotomayor likened the matter to a theater sign that reads, "You will be kicked out of the theater if you use photography or record the actors or otherwise disrupt the performance." She said, if you start yelling, I think no one would question you could be kicked out under this policy, even though yelling has nothing to do with photographing or recording, she said. Remember, 2 of the federal charges against Donald Trump relate to the law, which has been used against about 350 of the protesters from January the 6th. However, Special Prosecutor Jack Smith has said that no matter how the Supreme Court rules, it won't affect his case against the former president. In his interview with Politico, he said Trump is guilty even under the narrower interpretation of the law because he attempted to create slates of false electors and thus tried to falsify evidence. We shall see. And again, we may know the answer to this by late June. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is pleading with the wealthy in her city to help the most unfortunate. She says that they can help fund housing for the homeless as part of a new strategy to tackle the crisis during her State of the City address this week. Bass promoted the success of her signature Inside Safe program, which has moved over 21,000 homeless people into temporary shelters, according to the Associated Press. She insisted that this strategy and system of moving the homeless into temporary housing would eventually end the homelessness crisis in Los Angeles. Acknowledging the costliness of this endeavor, the mayor asked the wealthy to help speed up housing purchases for the homeless. Here's a local ABC affiliate's report.
LA Mayor Karen Bass delivering her State of the City address at City Hall today. She covered important topics, including the city's budget deficit, the continued homelessness crisis, and violent crime. Eyewitness News reporter Sophie Flay live in downtown LA with more on the mayor's message to Angelenos. Sophie.
Mark, a strong message of unity coming from LA Mayor Karen Bass, introducing new initiatives tonight, but saying city officials need to focus on working together to move this city forward.
We are turning away from the status quo. We are looking forward and making change.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass addressing Angelenos from City Hall tonight.
Thousands more unhoused Angelenos came inside, and homicide and violent crime came down last year.
In the crowd, folks that have benefited from Bass's homelessness initiative, Inside Safe, which takes the unhoused and provides temporary shelter, like this man who was living in a tent under the 210 freeway 2 weeks ago.
Now I'm in a motel off the street, so I can shower every day, shave, all the provisions that someone might have at home that you take for granted.
And this woman whose child attends Larchmont Charter School, a school in Hollywood with a homeless encampment that blocked the sidewalk, forcing children to walk in the street. After months of parents begging the city for help, the Inside Safe program moved 40 people indoors.
It did take a while, yeah. I think that it took a long time for the city to locate enough beds to house the whole encampment.
But the city of Los Angeles is conducting an audit on the Inside Safe program after the management of funds came into question by a group of community members. Bass announcing a new homelessness initiative tonight, LA for LA.
We are asking the most fortunate Angelenos to participate in this effort with personal, private sector, and philanthropic funds to help us acquire more properties, lower the cost of capital, and speed up housing.
The mayor said that the homeless crisis has affected everyone in the city, driving away businesses and customers, costing taxpayers city resources, and creating safety issues. She said, "I'll just not accept this, and our city can't afford to accept it. The new program will depend on the, quote, humanity and generosity of the private sector," the Democrat said. LA for LA can be a sea change for Los Angeles, an unprecedented partnership to confront this emergency, an example of disrupting the status quo to build a new system to save lives. Now, keep in mind, billions of dollars have been spent on homelessness in the Los Angeles area. There's been a number of new programs that have been put in place, but the mayor says it's possible that the number of homeless people will continue to increase, in part because of evictions and the end of COVID-19 aid for low-income households. According to the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, the city's leading centralized hub for homelessness services, more than 75,000 people were considered homeless in 2023, a 9% increase countywide. In the city, about 46,200 were considered homeless, a 10% increase from the previous year. According to local media reports, a coalition of business owners and residents in L.A. have filed a lawsuit against the city, arguing it did not honor its 2020 settlement agreement that promised it would build thousands of shelters and sweep out homeless encampments. Last week, the Los Angeles City Council agreed to pay an outside firm $2.2 million to audit its homelessness programs after request by a federal judge involved in that case. You know, we all celebrated when the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, and once again returned this decision of abortion back to the states. We've seen states approach this issue in very different ways. South Carolina passed a fetal heartbeat bill, which protects life of the unborn at the first sign of a heartbeat. If you missed my interview with Representative John McCravey from Greenwood, who was one of the leading House members in the South Carolina House of Representatives to lead the charge on this multiple times. He's worked on this for years. Just go to my YouTube channel. I had Representative McCravey on the Mike Gallagher show last week when Donald Trump made his announcement of his belief that the issue of abortion should be a state issue. It created headlines across the country, and I talked with Representative McCravey about his response to that and the fact that, yes, he too believes it's a state issue. South Carolina can take care of our own. It may not be what California or New York wants, but it's what South Carolina wants. So be sure and check that out if you missed it. It's on YouTube. And that was a day of celebration. I can vividly remember it in the summer of 2022. But here's the thing. Yes, we celebrated the overturning of Roe v. Wade, but our work is not over. It's just beginning, actually. And we have to keep fighting because the Democrats are going to continue to try to make abortions legal. It's just that simple. The ranking Democrat on a House subcommittee said yesterday that the Supreme Court's June 2022 decision overturning Roe v. Wade was a bigger threat to civil liberty than the COVID-19 lockdowns. Democrat Representative Mary Gay Scanlon of Pennsylvania made the comments about the Dobbs decision during a hearing that was held by the House Judiciary Committee's Subcommittee on Constitution and Limited Government titled Liberty, Tyranny, and Accountability, COVID-19 and the Constitution. Scanlon accused Republicans of backing the subjugation of women in her opening remarks during this hearing. Here she is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When the chairman noticed this hearing about liberty and tyranny, one might have wondered if our Republican colleagues wanted to have a real discussion about the civil rights and liberties guaranteed to all Americans. But given that this hearing is being convened by the same majority that changed the name of this subcommittee from the Subcommittee on the Constitution, Civil Rights, and Civil Liberties to the Subcommittee on the Constitution and Limited Government, it's no surprise that civil rights and liberties are once again taking a backseat to culture wars. Because you can't have a hearing on liberty without mentioning one of the most important civil liberties issues facing our country today. a woman's freedom to make existential decisions about her own health care without the meddling of politicians. And you can't have a hearing about tyranny without acknowledging that a person being denied medical care because of someone else's political or religious beliefs is certainly an exercise of tyranny. Since the Supreme Court overruled Roe v. Wade 2 years ago, state legislatures nationwide have passed laws that threaten women's reproductive health care with medically unnecessary restrictions. 1 in 3 women of reproductive age lives in a state with an abortion ban. Doctors and pharmacists doing their jobs, and even women who suffer miscarriages, have been threatened with criminal charges. Women who are denied access to health care are vulnerable to harm and even sometimes death. To be clear, the Supreme Court's misguided Dobbs decision did not take away a woman's underlying right to the freedom to make her own reproductive health care decisions, but it did take away an important legal protection. At a time when a majority of the public, 62%, disapproves of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe, Congress must pass the Women's Health Protection Act to enshrine this fundamental freedom into law.
Ms. Scanlon went on to argue that the COVID restrictions that we all had to endure were not examples of tyranny, but that the overturning of Roe v. Wade absolutely was. The hearing touched on damage done by lockdowns, including the learning loss and high absentee rates caused by the closing of schools for in-person learning, and it also touched on censorship of opposing viewpoints on COVID-19. This is the mindset of so many of these Democrats. COVID lockdowns and mandated vaccinations, they're not tyranny. Yet the protection of an unborn baby's life is. At the time of the announcement of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, I said then that we now have to step up and we got something that we've been working for literally decades, and that now it's time to step up and help these young women who choose life over death. Give them the resources they need to have their children, whether they keep them or whether they put them up for adoption to a loving home. We have to support these young women. And a group in Spartanburg is doing just that. Carolina Pregnancy Center had their spring gala last night, and boy, what a great evening Peg and I had. This has been a good week. Started Monday night with the Bronze Elephant Bronze Elephant of the 4th District Republican Club, which was a special night for me, being recognized with the Lifetime Achievement Award. Totally surprised over that. Many of you have sent me notes about that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Then Peg and I went to Spartanburg last night for the Carolina Pregnancy Center's spring gala, and boy, Alexa Newman and her staff, they really outdone themselves. CPC is doing amazing things. They're about to complete their new building, which is a dream come true for them. They've had the opportunity or have the opportunity to purchase additional adjacent land for future growth, which we're prayerful that we'll have people who will step up and will continue to contribute to do that. But here's one of the numbers that really stuck out in my mind last night as we heard of the successes for Carolina Pregnancy Center. 113% increase in people who found Jesus Christ because they went to Carolina Pregnancy Center. Now that's all. The other numbers are important. The lives changed or saved are important, but boy, that's an important number too. In their annual report, they say we've seen tremendous growth during 2023. We're thankful for all the volunteers, donors, and clients that he has brought to the ministry. We've seen his redemption, provision, hope, and love poured out on so many lives. In 2023, we saw 1,559 different clients, 1,009 of which were new to the ministry, for a total of 4,543 visits. Think about that. They had 4,543 people that they served. The report goes on to say we had spiritual discussions and or shared the gospel with 1,757 clients and their families. We were able to perform 676 pregnancy tests, 288 ultrasounds, and 609 earn while you learn visits. In addition, we continued our drive-through for assistance with diapers, wipes, and formula, serving 2,538 families, over 375 of them new to the ministry. Your generosity enabled us to give out over 4,000 packs of diapers and wipes and over 2,500 cans of formula. As we celebrate what he's done this year, we anticipate all he will do in 2024. What a wonderful organization. If you can help support Carolina Pregnancy Center, let me ask you to do so. Just go to carolinapregnancy.org, carolinapregnancy.org. I promise you, you can't support a more deserving organization. And my friend Alexa Newman and her just fabulous staff over there, they're doing a wonderful job supporting these young women who are choosing to allow their babies life. So, yes, for decades, we worked to get Roe v. Wade overturned. We now have the fetal heartbeat bill in South Carolina, which means that once that heartbeat is detected, that baby cannot be aborted. So we got to step up, and we have to support organizations like Alexa Newman's Carolina Pregnancy Center. Please give generously. Help them out. carolinapregnancy.org, carolinapregnancy.org. New standards for LED light bulbs announced by the Biden administration will likely mean that there'll be some measurable savings for American households, we're told. But other experts say that the bulbs last so long that it may be years before we notice the benefits. This is typical of any time a government agency tells you or mandates what kind of light bulb you purchase. Now, that's not exactly what they did, because I guess we could purchase as consumers any kind of bulb we could find. The problem is they mandated to manufacturers that they cannot make incandescent bulbs anymore. So that's kind of mandated what you and I can buy. If you go into the Dollar General store and the only bulbs are LEDs, that's what you're going to have to buy. I'll give you the details on this in just a moment. Portions of today's show brought to you by Furman Ford. It's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who live here in the upstate, and that's what you get with Furman Ford. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. If you go by the dealership, if you call them, if you send them an email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman family. They'll help you navigate some of the great deals they have, and boy, do they have a wonderful inventory of new vehicles and some great buys and a selection of pre-owned vehicles too. And these are pre-owned vehicles that you can trust. They've been given the Furman Ford, they check them out. They want to make sure that they'll be dependable transportation for you and your family. And the best part, you know that your money is staying right here in our community when you drive off the lot by supporting Furman Ford. Find them online at FurmanFord.com. Check out all their inventory there, FurmanFord.com. So the Biden administration's final rule for LED bulbs more than doubles the energy efficiency requirements for the bulbs, taking them from 45 lumens, which that's the measure of brightness, per watt, to more than 120 lumens. The Department of Energy has projected that the rule will result in about $27 billion in total savings and prevent the release of 70 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions over a 30-year period. I won't live to see that, unfortunately. I don't think I will. Andrew Dulaski, Executive Director of the Appliance Standards Awareness Project, told The Hill LED light bulbs, which are now the norm, will get more energy efficient and therefore use less electricity. So what this rule does is it mandates further how these bulbs are manufactured, which I suspect will mean that the price of the bulb will go up. So we're going to be paying more. And the problem with that, according to other experts, is, yes, they last a long time. So you're going to have to pay a high price for them. And most of us probably aren't going to live long enough to benefit from that long life of these light bulbs. He said that Americans will save about $1 per bulb under normal usage conditions, which comes to about a $50 annual savings in a typical household with about 2 dozen light bulbs. I haven't counted my light bulbs. I may do that, though. He added, it takes some time, and the reason it takes some time is LED light bulbs last a long time. In many cases, he said, the LED bulbs can last as long as 10 years before burning out, compared to the now phased out incandescent bulbs, which typically lasted about a year or so. Small savings add up is the moral of the story, he said. Consumer savings on light bulbs will differ from those associated with appliances that most households only have one of, like a refrigerator, Joe Volkovich said. He's a climate and energy staff attorney at the Natural Resources Defense Council. He said even if it's a couple of bucks over the life of the bulb times the number of bulbs, those savings accumulate in a household with a lot of light bulbs. That doesn't take a whole rocket science to figure that out. Yeah, the more bulbs you have, the more you'll save. Full enforcement of this new LED rule does not begin until 2029, but Volkovich said that some manufacturers and retailers will probably take steps to be in compliance even before then. I don't know about you, but I'm not really crazy about LED lights. And the idea that they last much longer, that's not always true either. In some cases, we have paid a lot more for an LED bulb, and it's gone out within months for some odd reason. I have some outdoor LED lights that seem to, every other week, there seems to be one of them goes out. And you can't just replace the bulb, you have to replace the whole fixture. The Biden administration has pursued a much broader strategy of tightening energy efficiency rules for appliances, light bulbs. This after Donald Trump loosened, or in some cases just eliminated, some of these rules. The Trump administration rolled back a number of existing energy efficiency and environmental rules. Some of those who have watched this closely, though, claim that with Congress's taking action on some of these, it'll be much harder for Donald Trump to roll them back if he's successfully elected to a second term in November. And that's what the Biden administration is quietly trying to do, is trying to put in place some of these horrible regulations that Trump wiped out years ago, but trying to do it in such a way that it will be almost impossible for Donald Trump to undo. The Hill writes, the process was often misleadingly conflated with the government confiscating individual consumers' incandescent bulbs. They're talking about that the announcement of the LED rule, that the Biden administration began enforcing a separate ban on new sales of older incandescent light bulbs last August, basically not allowing retailers to sell some inventory they had on hand. Some outlets, though, reported that individual consumers had been restricted on purchasing them. Again, that doesn't appear to be the case. However, if there's none to be purchased, he's kind of accomplishing the same thing, right? This Valbasco said, these are the bulbs that are available on shelves. It's been that way for some time, and guess what? They work as well or better than the inefficient incandescent light bulbs they replaced. Consumers are happy with LEDs, he said. This standard will make sure that LEDs on the market are even more energy efficient, and that's a good thing. There's really nothing to push back against. Look, why don't you let the consumer decide? Honestly, I mean, give us a shelf of LEDs, give us a shelf of incandescents, and we can decide which one we want to purchase. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639 is the Furman Ford text line. Susan writes on the text line, as the Hamas lovers who chained themselves to their cars on the Golden Gate Bridge tow the cars, and the Gitmo Infirmary can treat any resulting road rash. Susan, you're take no prisoners kind of a person there, aren't you? She's, of course, referencing some who had chained themselves to vehicles. Christy writes on the Furman Ford text line, congratulations on the Lifetime Achievement Award. Thank you, Christy. She says, when you were speaking about doing the show versus the podcast, I still listen to the podcast at 6 a.m. each morning, purposely. You're part of my morning routine before work, so that's when I listen. Well, thank you, Christy. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people, and that's why it's ready. It's ready to go before 6 o'clock a.m. because many of you I know did have listening to the Morning Answer as part of your routine. So Just the Truth is ready for you by 6 a.m. so that you can keep your same schedule. Faye writes, congratulations, Joy, on your recognition. Thank you, Faye. I appreciate that. She says, our country needs more like you. Please keep up the good work, and we know that you will. Last week, my internet was down a while, and I felt very un-American because I missed your podcast, but I got caught up. Well, thank you, Faye. Sorry that your internet was down. And, you know, our internet was out about almost a day this past weekend. And it's like I had withdrawal because there were so many things that I wanted to do. Didn't have to do, but wanted to do. And when you don't have internet and you rely on it for so many things, it can be kind of tough, can't it? Dom in Illinois, congratulations, Joey, on your Lifetime Achievement Award. Yay. Thank you, Dom. And Dom, I'm glad you're still listening as well. Appreciate you continuing your journey with us on Just the Truth. Our text of encouragement today from Joel, I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand, I will not be shaken. Psalm 16:8. God bless. God bless you too, Joel. Also, I got a text. This actually was from one of my nephews, and it's from Jeremiah 17:9. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope. And then there's some notes written on there. It's like a note sheet. It says 5 things Jesus did not say. Number 1, follow your heart. No, Jesus said, follow me. Number 2, be true to yourself. Jesus said, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny himself. Number 3, believe in yourself. No, Jesus said, believe in me. Number 4, live your truth. Nope, Jesus said, I am the truth. And number 5, as long as you're happy. Well, no, Jesus said, what will it profit a man if he gains the world and loses his soul? I appreciate my nephew sending that to me yesterday. 864-477-5639. You can send your comments to the Furman Ford text line as well. I welcome voice messages, and you can email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Conjoined twins Lori and George Chappelle, who somehow reportedly pursued separate careers, interests, and relationships during their lives, defied medical expectations. They lived to be 62. They died just a few weeks ago in Pennsylvania, according to funeral home officials. This is an intriguing story about these conjoined twins. The Guinness Book of World Records says that they were the oldest living conjoined twins, again, living to age 62. I'll give you those details in just a moment. Portions of today's show also made possible by Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Are you tired of buying appliances from inexperienced sales staff who have no appliance knowledge? There's so many options and brands and features when you start looking for new appliances. It can get confusing, can't it? You need someone to help you walk down that path to find the right appliance for you. And it's not at one of the big box stores. All they know is which aisle the refrigerators are on. You can't afford to buy the wrong one because appliances are expensive. So that's why I recommend shopping at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. They have an A+ Better Business Bureau. They have nearly perfect reviews on Google. And the team at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they have the knowledge that you need to have the confidence that you're making the right purchase. They'll show you around the warehouse. It's about 11,000 square feet, packed full of new appliances. You can buy today and use today in most cases. They have an award-winning service department, extended warranties. They've got you covered well beyond the sale because they make you part of the family. You're not just a credit card swipe with Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Find them in Pickens and online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. So Lori and George Chappelle were 62 years old. These conjoined twins, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, were the oldest living conjoined twins. They died April the 7th, according to an announcement that was just recently made at the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania. Cause of death was not detailed. They lived an interesting life, though. They said, when we were born, the doctors didn't think we'd make 30, but we proved them wrong, Lori said in an interview when they turned 50 with the Philadelphia Inquirer. George came out as transgender in 2007. I'm not quite sure I understand how he could do that, but the Inquirer reports that Lori was once engaged to be married, but her fiancé died in a car crash. You know, this comes on the heels of the report of another set of conjoined twins who one of the twins did get married just a couple of weeks ago. The twins were born September 18th, 1961 in West Reading, Pennsylvania. They had distinctive brains but were joined at the skull. George was 4 inches shorter and was wheeled around by Lori on an adaptive wheel stool. Despite each having to go where the other went, it was very important for both to live as independently as possible. They both graduated from a public school, took college classes. George went along for 6 years as Lori worked in a hospital laundry room. Lori, a trophy-winning bowler, according to the obituary notice, gave up the job in 1996 so that her sibling could launch a country music career. Since the age of 24, they've maintained their own residence and have traveled extensively, according to their obituary. Over the years, they appeared in many documentaries and talk shows, as well as an episode of the FX medical drama Nip Tuck. Separation was deemed risky for the Chappelle twins, but Lori Chappelle told the AP in 2002 in an interview that she didn't think such an operation was necessary in any case. She said, "You don't mess with what God made, even if it means you enjoy both children for a shorter time." In a 1997 documentary, George also strongly ruled out the idea of separation, saying, "Why fix what is not broken?" Again, I don't completely understand how two people connected like that can live together, just like the conjoined twins who one was married just a few weeks ago. But God bless them for living for 62 years when they were only expected to live to about 30. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Hey, I appreciate you joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Please join our mailing list. It's real simple. Just go to joeyhudson.com, click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Find me on YouTube as well. Just search for Joey Hudson. If you can't find it, send me a quick text. I'll send you a link to it. And again, I appreciate you spending part of your day with me today. I know that you do have choices of how you spend your time, and I appreciate you joining me on Just the Truth. Hey, take a minute now and share today's episode with someone. That's how we build our community. If you'll just take a minute, hit the little share button, and send it out to a few people on your contact list, and ask them to join our community of patriots here on Just the Truth. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Keep your emails coming to joey@joeyhudson.com. We're back again tomorrow. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.